everybody, thanks for watching. The next 2 years, 2015, 2016, we'll see some very interesting things happen in America. Now, I've been putting out videos for a while now, and I've been trying to give people information and help them understand what is going on in America and what America really is. See, a lot of people have this notion that some things are just not going to happen because it's not right. Or no way the government can do this to the people. And for black people, we have been seeing that there is no justice. We have been seeing innocent people killed for no reason and getting away with it. The killers getting away with it. So we can see that no matter what the proof shows or no matter what the facts is, they will let a murderer get off to maintain a status quo of white dominance over black men and women. But I'm not here to talk about race because race is just a distraction, and they have been doing very well with distracting people with black and white instead of what's going on. What you need to understand is this. Their plan is coming to fruition within the next 2 years. Everything that they have been doing over the last few centuries is coming to a climax in the next 2 years. So let's look at what's been going on in America over the last few years. And amazingly, the American people have seemed to just ignore these obvious signs. We have been seeing FEMA camps grow up all across America. We have been seeing CDC coffins, miles and miles of coffins and storage spaces for coffins all over America. We have been seeing convoys of military vehicles, tanks, Humvees, in every major city in America. We have been seeing training exercise for rioting, training exercise for mass panic. We have been seeing them practice martial law and using incidents, fake incidents, to do so. We have been seeing the military, we have been seeing the police department order millions of dollars in ammunition. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is about to happen? Now, first you have to understand why. You have to understand what happened. You have to really look at history and realize who the founding fathers of America were before you ever heard of them. You have to realize what their purpose was in America, what they were doing there. Now, the forefathers of America were under King George III, and they had specific orders on how America was supposed to be run and what America was supposed to be. America was a crown colony of the king. So was other major countries around the world. And the forefathers of America were a part of a group of men who came together and decided to rule the world strategically through taxation, through loans, through finance, and if need be, war. And the forefathers of America were a part of that secret society, and they went against their oath. Now, the question is, who did they break their oath to? Did they break their oath to King George III, or did they break their oath to the Freemasons? Because we know most of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were themselves Freemasons. We know for a fact that George Washington was a Freemason, and the Declaration of Independence was signed before he died. We know that the Masonic layout of Washington was started before Washington died. So who did they break their oath to? So we can see clearly that they broke their oath to the king. Now, we know that they discovered that Freemasonry existed in 1717 in England, and they outlawed it because of its secretive nature. It was hidden from the king. It was hidden from a lot of people. And it was like, who the hell is these Freemasons? And, you know, you discover they are powerful people. So they outlawed Freemasonry in England. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is this. The founding fathers of America did not go against the king because of some kind of taxes or some kind of injustice, or they felt like they wanted to be free and the king was oppressing them. It wasn't that. It was the Freemasons taking power, taking control, and separating themselves from the king. That's what happened. Because if it was about truth and justice and freedom and all that, when they freed themselves from the king, they would have freed the slaves as well. It wasn't about freedom. It wasn't about no kind of justice. It was the Freemasons taking over and taking a position of power. And they did that by taking control of America first and using it and using their influence and power to later on marry themselves into the royal families across the world. Freemasons. And so now today we have Freemasons in the royal family in all positions of power around the world. But they had to get America first. See, the thing is this. You need people to fight wars. And if I come to you and say, hey, I got a problem with these people over here, can you help me fight them? So I'm asking you to risk your life to help me fight my battle. Not many people going to do that. So you have to give them something. You have to affect the people in a way to where they would want to go to war, because you need people to go to war. But for what? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to say, we're going to keep all the tax money that we're supposed to pay the king. That's what we're going to do first. And then we're going to raise the taxes on the people and tell them that, hey, the king is raising the taxes, and he said we can't use our colonial script anymore. We got to pay in gold and silver. Well, we don't have gold and silver. So then you make up a big fuss with the people, because the people mad about their money. So when King George come over here to get his money, and he like, yo, where the hell is my gold and silver at? You bust those troops upside their head, and you kill them, and you send one back and say, we ain't paying you nothing. And you get the people behind them like, yeah, we're not going to pay anything. We're tired of paying all this money. So then a war starts. You got to understand, the Revolutionary War started in 1775. The Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, but the war didn't end until 1783. So how would you why would you create a Declaration of Independence and sign it like, it's going to be law before you even win the war? Because had you lost the war, what's the point of, drafting the document anyway? It would make more sense for them to draft that document and sign it after the war, after you've won. But see, they knew they would win. They had it all planned out from the jump, because you can pay a man money and he's going to give you what that money is worth. And then at the end of the day, he's going to use that money to better his life. But if you give a man hope, if you give him hope that all his dreams may come true, he will risk his life. He will risk his life so his dreams can come true. And that's what the Declaration of Independence was. It was the hope for the people. So the Revolutionary War was fought by farmers. You had men, women, children, everybody was in that war. You can't fight a whole country of people. You can't fight a whole nation. Your army is only but so big, and then you have the people. But if all the people was in on this war, you cannot win. And the Masons knew it. They knew they would win, and they won. So when it was over, while everybody's thinking that, it's a big win for America, and we're free now, and we beat the British and this and that, it was just a trap. It was a Masonic trap. See, the reason why America had allies, and still have allies, but especially their first allies during the Revolutionary War, was because of what they was fighting for. They was fighting for freedom, or so they say they was fighting for freedom, because they was fighting for freedom and independence from King George III, away from monarchies, away from kings and all their taxes and all of the will they was imposing on the people. They knew they would have countries rally to their aid to be free. So it was perfect setup by the Masons, but it backfired on them. It backfired because, like I said, you gave people hope, and people fought for truth and justice, freedom, and that meant something to the people. And you can't do nothing without the people. So the people, they became patriotic. And that's a bad thing for the Masons. They became really patriotic. Now, we know they later learned how to use it against us, But then there was a problem because this whole thing was new. This hasn't been done before. This was a new thing that was going on that the Masons was creating. And the people who was becoming political figures, they ran on freedom and justice and truth, and they ran on all these things, in America. And the Masons, they tried hard to get as much as their people as possible in positions of power during the beginning of America's infancy. But you had so many people that really bought into the whole truth and justice thing. And if they couldn't bring them into Freemasonry later or buy them off, they was killed. But you can only do that but so much. So here you have the Masons have reached their goal. They have did it. Their plan came about right, but they can't seem to get a full controlling hold over America for years, hundreds of years. So today we know that Britain, England, and America are our allies. How did that come to be? After 2 wars, how did we come to be friends with Britain, with England? And that's because the same Masons, the same secret society that's responsible for America coming to be, took over Britain. And they did it through the money system. And they used that same system to take over America finally and take it away from the people. They did it through money because they knew they can't beat the people. They can't beat them strategically through war. You just can't beat the people in war. So they had to take over the system from within through the money system. I did a whole video on how exactly they did that. But they did it through the money system and used our own laws against us. Now, JFK figured this whole thing out. He figured it out, as well as a few other people, that the way we could repair America, the way we could fix everything that's wrong with America is to, 1, get rid of the Federal Reserve, which is why he signed an executive order doing just that, and he printed these notes. If you look at the note you still have today, it says Federal Reserve note. But the ones that JFK brought out says United States note, because the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with America. It's not federal at all. It just uses the name federal to confuse you. But the bank is owned by foreigners. It's owned by non-Americans. And once he figured that out, he got rid of that bank, and that's what got him killed. It had nothing to do with anything else. They killed JFK because he got rid of the one thing that could fix America, and that's the Federal Reserve. That's why he's dead and gone. Now, I gave you this whole, quick history lesson because I want you to see the severity and the power of what the Masons have done and are still doing. And you need to understand that what the Freemasons really are, and that they exist. They have taken over every facet of your life, and you see it, but you don't believe it. It's why you see in the music, you see all the Masonic symbols. You see it in movies, the Masonic symbols everywhere, because they took over America, and they're using their, as you can call it, a religion if you want to. I know what Masonry really is, but they perverted it and use it for something else. But you find it everywhere now. And they're trying to tell you something, but you're not getting it. You're not realizing what they're trying to tell you. And now everything is coming to a climax for their society within the next 2 years. And that's what this video is about. So, the Freemasons, who are responsible for creating the post-Revolutionary War America, it took them over 200 years. It took them a couple hundred years to finally get full control of America. So they got their foot back in the door. They gripped the reins of power in 1913 when they passed the Federal Reserve Act. So they gripped it, but they still had people in power who they did not control. And in 1933, they basically really killed America. In 1933, FDR basically changed most of the laws and most of the rules. He basically rewrote the Constitution in 1933. So everything that we as a people put into place as far as laws, everything that we felt was good, everything they felt that was just and truth, and everything that they thought America was supposed to be about, they put into laws. And in 1933, FDR rewrote all those laws because the Masons finally took control of America in 1933. But because before that, you didn't need birth certificate, social security card. You didn't need it before 1933 because you were truly free then. People were free. And they wasn't tracking the people and worried about this and that and your finances and all that. That didn't happen until after 33 when they finally took control. So now that they have control of America, they have to destroy it. They have to break it down completely and rebuild it back the way they wanted it to be way back in 1700s. The Masonic America that they set out to create from the beginning. Now that they have full control of it finally, they want to bring it back. Because remember, the people who control America right now, they are not Americans. They can give a good goddamn about your patriotic nature and your feelings and all that because it's bullshit. They created it. They created it, which is why you see Freemasonry everywhere, because this has always been about Freemasonry. That's why it's all over the place. This is a free Masonic, America is a free Masonic country, period. Whether you choose to believe it or not, the proof has been in your face your whole life. You choose not to see it, but that's the facts. And they have to destroy America, break it down, build it back up the way they want it. And to do so, it's going to take a lot of people dying. A lot of death and destruction is coming towards there, which is why Bible prophecy always shows America being destroyed. So what does the Bible have to do with this whole thing? So, let me get into that briefly and then more later. And you have to realize that, as I said before, you need people to fight wars. It's just that simple. So you go look at all those old movies. Look at movies like Lord of the Rings and all those movies about the time when kings reigned and ruled. How do you get people to go fight a whole war for you? How do you get them to do that? Now, we understand that the villages that these people was attacking, those soldiers, they was just defending themselves. That's why they fought. They didn't want to be conquered, so they fought. But how do you get people to go and conquer a land for you? And it all has to do with religion. It's just that simple, because you got to remember that people back then believed that the kings and queens had the divine right to rule. These people was raised up believing that God made these people kings over everybody else. That God did this, that God put them here. And then later you have the Bible back all that stuff up. You read the Bible, it tells you to obey those who are in power. The Bible also tells you to pay taxes. It tells you to pray for your government officials. It tells you to obey your public officials, whether elected or not. It tells you that they are ordained by God. They were put there by God. And they have a divine right to be in a position of power. And you are supposed to obey them without getting mad. Your Bible says this. Without getting upset. You're supposed to just listen to them. So this is how you get people to obey a king. This is how you get people to go and fight a war if they believe that God is telling them to do so. But you got to ask yourself something. Who is the people loyalty really to? Is it really towards the king, or is it towards the religion and the people who run the religion? You would think their loyalty would be more towards the religion, which is why I said before, religion is power. It was created to control people, because you're not going to get people to follow a man who's just like you. For what? Who are you? Why am I going to follow you? Why am I going to listen to you and I can do what you do? Probably do it better. You have to put religious context behind it, and that's what they did, and that's the purpose of religion. So the Freemasons answer to the Pope. They answer to religion. They are a religious secret society. You cannot be a Freemason without being in a religion. You have to be Christian, Jew, or Muslim to be in the Freemasons. That's a fact. Now, you got to think about something. How are we going to operate? Now, you talk about a secret society who has just taken over major places in the world, not just America, but other places as well. How are we going to operate? We can't operate in public. We can't really operate in secret because remember, in 1717, they know about us. So we can't really go nowhere yet until, we control certain places and bring this thing back. So of course, once they took over places around the world, they brought back Freemasonry. They took it, they made it not be outlawed anymore. But during that time, and even after that, how are we going to communicate with each other if we cannot, meet together in public? So Freemasonry, as you know, is built up around a lot of secret Masonic codes, wording, symbols, things like that. The only people who are Freemasons will know. And there are other things that only people in the innermost core, the highest level of Freemasonry will know. The real Masons, as I like to call them. Because that, first, second, third degree Mason is nothing. It's way higher levels and they are privy to so much more knowledge than the lower Masons. Now see, one of the things they had to do was this. In order to figure out if we're going to bring you into the highest order of Freemasonry, remember, you have to be in a religion. So you'll hear a lot of Masons who are, lower level Masons, they'll talk about Jesus. They praise God and everything. So how are you going to get that person who believe in Jesus and all this truth and, the Bible and everything they believe is real? How are you going to get them to get into the higher part of Freemasonry and get them to do something that you need them to do? You have to have a way of showing them that the Bible that they believe in, or the Torah that they believe in, or the Quran that they believe in is not what they think it is. But first, you can't just come out and tell them that. You have to give them a test. And one of the tests that they do in Freemasonry is they test your faith to Freemasonry or your test towards your religion. And one of the things they do is they will give you your Bible and they will tell you to turn to the Bible verse or to the religious verse that mean the most to you. And when you read it, they will ask you to defecate on that page and then set the Bible or religious book on fire. Think about that. So here you have the Grand Master telling you, we want you to shit on your Bible, and then we want you to set the Bible on fire. You have two choices. Either you do it or you don't. Now, if you do it, you passed. And then they will test you more and see what else you are willing to do. And they might get you to do something later like kill somebody to see how loyal you're going to be. Now, once you do those kind of things, they know you can be trusted with certain information because now they have dirt on you. And you can go up to those higher blocks of Freemasonry where more things are required of you, like sacrifices. Sacrifice a loved one. Now, if you don't do it, you still pass. If you do it, they say you pass. Let's keep it moving. If you don't do it, they say you pass. Oh yeah, you passed. You kept your faith. Good job. It was just a setup. It was just to test your loyalty to your religion, and that's how they get you. Because when you don't do it, they know they can't trust you with certain information. They can't trust you at a certain level. So you only stay at a certain level and you only be given certain information. But if you're willing to do something as heinous and nasty as shit on your Bible and set it on fire, then you are probably willing to do some more heinous and nasty things, which the inner core, the top block of Freemasonry is kind of sort of about, which is why they use the pyramid. Not just because they stole it, Freemasonry, from Egypt. Let me make sure I put that in there. Freemasonry comes from Egypt, but that's a whole other thing. And they just perverted it. They stole it, but they used the pyramid as a symbol because very few at the top control so much at the bottom. Now remember, I was saying how they show you everything in movies in Hollywood. So, very few at the top control many at the bottom. Look at the movie Star Wars, the Sith. It was always only two Sith, the Dark Lord and his apprentice. So, if you don't know already, the whole Star Wars franchise is about Freemasonry. If you look at the Jedi Council, they would be Masons. So they would be Masons like the people who had that lower part, who they got some power, but they don't know as much. They don't know that they know about the dark side, but they won't touch it. They don't know that it's other levels they can reach, so they don't go mess with that. If you really look at the whole Jedi Council, you got to think about it. They're kind of portrayed as good guys, but are they really? The Jedi Council, they have a whole knowledge of this force, and they know the truth about the world and what's going on and everything. But do they share that with the people? No, they don't share it with the people. They keep it to themselves, like the Masons. So yeah, the Jedi, they know all about what happens when you die. They know what the afterlife really is, but they choose not to tell the people. They keep it to themselves within the Jedi Council. Now you have lower ranking Jedis, Jedi Knights and everything, and then you have the Jedi Council, and of course the Jedi Council knows more than the Jedi Knights, and so forth. Now if you remember in the Star Wars franchise, the newest ones, Anakin, who's Darth Vader, he had to do some awful things to become strong enough with the dark side. Remember, he had to kill kids, he had to kill his friends and people in order to become strong enough with the dark side. So it's just like when I was saying about how they have to burn the Bible and everything. They have to do some pretty heinous things to be considered worthy enough to get this new knowledge. So with all that being said, what I want you to really understand is the Masons are everywhere. They are in every facet of business, technology, science, medicine, religion, education. They are in every major part of your life, and you don't even realize it. See, Freemasonry has become a sort of conspiracy theory to people. You see it with your own eyes. Here they go. You can see them everywhere. You can see the symbols and logos everywhere. But TV has destroyed people's mind to where if the news doesn't report it as news, it's not real. It doesn't have validity to it if the news is not going crazy about it. And these people control the news. So people have to wake up and realize how brainwashed they are about television. Okay, so let me get into the information. Let me get into the heart of what this video is all about. And in doing so, I will answer the two questions that I posed earlier. What does the Bible have to do with this whole thing? And how did the Masons communicate with each other? Now, I realize that no matter what you say to a religious person, no matter how much proof you have, they will cling on to their religion. Because religion has a hold on them. They too scared to let it go for whatever reason. And some people just are not going to let their religion go. That's something I have come to accept in, my journey of putting out, information. Even though the official story is religion is false and stolen from Egypt. That's the official story. But because people haven't seen it on the news, because the news have not done a full, weak story about the Bible being stolen from Egypt, nobody is believing it. And they have not done that story because the very people who want to perpetuate this whole religion thing owns the news media. That's a fact. So yeah, the Masons own the news. Now, understand, there were 16 versions of the Bible before the King James Version was ever written. Now here go a list of everybody who has written the Bible. I want you to take a look. I'm going to go through it briefly. But I want you to see that there were 16 versions of the Bible before the King James Version. Now you have to really think about something. Why would you need so many versions of the Bible? If the Bible was the inspired, inerrant word of God, it should have just been what it was. Why would you need so many people to keep writing, keep changing the Bible and making different versions if they wasn't supposed to change anything? Revelations 22, 18, 19 says, do not change anything. Do not add or take away from the book. Now, when the Catholic Church first translated the book from Greek, from Syriac into Latin, and kept it that way for years, something is always lost in translation. So by them translating it into a different language, words changed, meanings changed. So everything is different, and you're not getting what the true message was, or what it really said, or if it even was the inspired word of God. We don't know, because we do not have the originals. We don't know what the hell going on. We only can go by these translations. That's something you really need to think about. You also need to understand that before King James wrote the Bible, which we're going to get into that because he didn't really write it, before he put together the Bible, before he and his help put together the Bible, King James in 1599 wrote a book called Demonology. So if you are of the Catholic Church, if you are of the church, Christian, why would you seek the aid of a man who wrote a book about demons? That's something you need to think about. Now, I always like to go back and quote the Geneva Bible written in 1560, because the Geneva Bible is the reason for the King James Version of the Bible, because it pointed out all the flaws of the Bible and how it was bullshit, and it also named the Pope as the Antichrist. The Geneva Bible was like, well, this is what this is, this is what this means, this is where this came from, and it pointed out so much. Now, you also have to understand, you have to look at a lot of these earlier Bibles. They have footnotes. They have notes in the margins. They have references to earlier manuscripts that said different things. So some church people like to say, well, they was inspired by the Holy Spirit or by God himself to write this stuff. But if the Holy Spirit or God inspired these men to write these things, how come there are so many different versions? How come they had to put stuff in the footnotes to basically show you that it was something else totally different said in another manuscript, or this person said this in a different manuscript? So why would God inspire, 4 different men to say 4 different things about one particular thing? You got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who all saw the same thing, and they all wrote different accounts of it. I mean, think about that. But it's a reason behind that whole thing. But everybody getting so holy and spiritual, and they don't read the Bible anyway, so they're not. Most people don't even know that all 4 of them said something different, which contradicts each other. That are not small things, but completely changes the whole story. Now, this next part that I'm going to get into is going to shock a lot of people. Now, some of you may have heard about this or may know about it, but I don't think you know about it to the extent that I'm about to go into it in this video. Now, I'm going to come out and tell you exactly what it is before I show some video. But if you study William Shakespeare, and I remember in school they forced Shakespeare down our throat, it's a reason for that. But and I'm not going into the whole Shakespeare in the Bible, even though I'm going to talk about that later. That's not what I'm talking about here. But if you know about Shakespeare, and if you ever did any digging into Shakespeare and his works, you will have came across a man named Francis Bacon. And you will have heard a bunch of stories about Francis Bacon being the real genius behind William Shakespeare and his playwrights. Now, the whole story goes with Francis Bacon is he was the son of Queen Elizabeth. And he was illegitimate, and she cheated basically and had him. So he had no right to the throne. So he had to hide his birthright. So he was pissed, of course. But see, Francis Bacon was a genius. Francis Bacon, as most people know him, is the man who's responsible for the scientific theory. That is the official credit he is given to. So he was the person who came up with, form a hypothesis and do an experiment and all that stuff. You remember from science class in elementary school. But that's the man who came up with it, Francis Bacon. He is a genius. He's responsible for so much today. Now, what most people didn't know about Francis Bacon is he was the man behind William Shakespeare, and what he did was he hid himself in a lot of Shakespeare's plays and a lot of his books, and he basically revealed through coding that he is the real person behind Shakespeare. Now, this has been brought out in books. People have talked about it, and I want to show you some quick video clips about what I'm speaking to, so then we can go from that, and you can get what I'm trying to say later on. So take a look at this and you judge for yourself. But I mean, really, the proof is what it is. There's no judging you need to do. There's the proof. So take a look.
The first folio is the first published collection of Shakespeare's plays. It was published in 1623. That year, Shakespeare had been dead for 7 years, but Francis Bacon was still alive. The first of the cipher signatures has been pointed out by the Norwegian Petter Amundsen. The text facing Droeshout's portrait of Shakespeare on the first page of the first folio begins with the line, "This figure that thou here seest put." This figure refers to Droeshout's portrait, but Petter Amundsen has noticed that it also can be interpreted as referring to the word "to", which can be found as an acrostic, reading downwards in the left margin. Amundsen took this as a hint to the effect that we should take a closer look at page 2 of the first folio. The first play in the first folio is The Tempest, and on page 2 of this play, Petter first found one more instance of "to" as an acrostic in the margin of the second column. What is interesting is that opposite to this, in the first column, we can read F. Bacon downwards in the margin. Two features of this strengthen the hypothesis that F. Bacon has been placed here on purpose. First, we find the beginning of Bacon's last name in the word "begun", and the concluding letters of his name in the word "concluding". We thus find Bacon in the words "begun" and "concluding". Secondly, this is found in a paragraph which is about revealing someone's identity. I'm not sure why Bacon makes use of the number 2 in this context, but it could be motivated by Bacon's initial B, corresponding to the number 2 by being letter number 2 in the alphabet. The second signature is well known and is found on page 53 of the play The Merry Wives of Windsor. As part of a lesson in Latin, we can here read, "Hang hog" is Latin for bacon, I warrant you. The reason Baconians think Bacon has been inserted here on purpose, as a reference to Francis Bacon, is that we find a very similar joke about hanging a hog and bacon in a posthumous publication by Bacon called Resuscitatio. In a collection of jokes and witty sayings in that book, number 36 is about Bacon's father, Sir Nicholas Bacon. As a judge, he is about to sentence a man named Hogg to death. Hogg then says, "Your name is Bacon, and mine is Hogg." And in all ages, Hogg and Bacon have been so near kindred that they are not to be separated. "Aye, but," replied Judge Bacon, "you and I cannot be kindred, except you be hanged. For Hogg is not Bacon until it be well hanged." The third cipher signature, which is a recent discovery, makes use of elements from the first two signatures, notably the significance of the number 2 and the word hog. As shown here, there are no occurrences of the hog in the works of Shakespeare. But we find one instance of a hog. This is found in the play A Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 3, Scene 1, on page 152 of the first folio. We shall now see that we find Bacon hid very close to a hog in the first column of this page. Notice first that we can read, "And there indeed let him name his name." I think him here refers to Bacon. Starting to read on the first letter of him, downwards in the margin, we can read hit B. This B is the first letter of Bacon, which we find by reading every other letter backwards. Here we have A, C, O, N, which gives us Bacon. Hints to the effect that we should read every other letter are found by noticing that right above Bacon we can read 2, and that following after "and there indeed let him name his name" we can read "and tell him," where I read tell as a reference to counting. We find Bacon by reading every other letter or every third letter up to every 10th letter only 6 times in the first folio. Since the first folio consists of over 3 million letters, the probability that the letter after hit in the margin should be the first letter of Bacon by chance is less than 1 in 500,000. This puzzle also has a metaphorical level. We find Bacon metaphorically inside a chamber. That is, we find him in the words "into a chamber." To see him there we need light, and the line reads "to bring the moonlight into a chamber." Since the word "to" here and the number 2 have identical pronunciation, I think "to bring the moonlight into a chamber" should be read as telling us that the number 2, metaphorically, brings the light we need to find Bacon in the chamber. A few lines further down, the significance of moonlight is accentuated by repeating "find out moonshine, find out moonshine." Since moonlight and a hog is used to direct us to the solution of this puzzle, I think it's worth noticing that Bacon's coat of arms contains a wild boar at the top with a moon crescent on it, and that we also find a moon crescent at the center of the coat of arms. You see it here from above a portrait of Bacon from his book Instauratio Magna. I want to point out 2 features that strengthen the hypothesis that Bacon is hid here on purpose. My first point concerns indications that the lines containing Bacon have been typographically set on purpose, so that the B in Bacon becomes the last letter in hit B in the margin, which is what connects "and there indeed let him name his name" and Bacon. To get this result, chamber must be separated into chame and bear. Looking at the line, we can see that there are very large gaps after the commas early in the line, which is the reason there is a lack of space at the end of the line, forcing bear to be moved to the beginning of the next line. I think this is a bit strange, since the page contains many instances where there is no space at all after a comma. See this instance at the top, and this one, here is an example, here is one, and here is one more example. My second point concerns the words "and tell him." Reading the context, one will see that the use of "him" here makes no sense. Shakespearean scholars have seen this and regard "him" here as an error. "Him" is therefore replaced by "them" in all modern versions of the play.
I doubt I would have come to you if all that this involved was the Shakespeare authorship question, which it does. You might have had an inkling, of course. William Shakespeare was certainly involved in the writing of the plays, but the simple point in my mind is a fair one, I think. There is a complete absence of any single piece of paper written on by William Shakespeare, except in his will. It seems to me, Dean, that if William Shakespeare had been the man of the people, he would have left evidence behind him, like a gale blowing through a paper factory with the windows open. So where is it all? I thought it was much more likely that these great works were written or dictated or edited, but inspired and directed from under the cover of a richly embroidered cloak. To me, that person could only have been a genius of his age, and all ages to follow. He would also have had to have been a powerful person. He wouldn't surely only have written plays. He was Francis Bacon, the founder of modern scientific thought and philosophy, who was, as well, by necessity, a hidden poet. And the truth of Francis Bacon's secret life will eventually be found in hundreds of examples throughout his writings. I have seen very few, just one or two, but here's one from Sonnet 76, attributed to Shakespeare, of course, but written by Francis Bacon. It's the shortest biography one can imagine. The text is squared. We'll explain more later. Line following line, and with it one looks for a symmetrical shape, and they must be symmetrical to be credible, which is an anagram. This spells Fra, Tudor, author, given the common diminutive of Francis, Fra, his birthright, Tudor, and his authorship, author. There are 2 or 3 more to come on this tape. But of course, like Enigma, you have to know the method, the key by which the encoding took place. Otherwise, you can't understand the message. This is a book of codes and ciphers published in 1624, which is crucial to Thomas Bokenham's findings. He discovered a strong indication, seemingly reinforced many times, that Francis Bacon himself had contributed a particular method of concealing messages in a text to this book. Page 140 in Cryptomenetices gives an example of how a text should be squared line following line. That is the system. You take the text and you lay it out in a square of a particular number of letters per line. It was by investigating this illustration that Thomas Bokenham discovered within it the strongest possible indication that the method was provided by Francis Bacon for some future generation to find. Thomas Bokenham believes he can show that this same method has been used in dozens of cipher revelations, and that this is the key to the Shakespeare enigma. Under the squared text was the phrase Magnentius Rabanus Morus hoc opus fecit. Looking for any possible hidden references, Mr. Bokenham noticed that the letter B was 14 letters from the beginning of the phrase, and that the letter O was 14 letters from the B, both letters being components of the name Bacon. He therefore laid the phrase out along a grid with a top line of 14 letters, the rest of the phrase following on to end on the word fecit on the 3rd line. Then he began the phrase again and again, repeating it slightly more than 4 times in all, line following line, until he'd built up this squaring of the phrase. In the last column, he found the letters B-O-N-A-C in a vertical line, an anagram of B-A-C-O-N, bacon. Then in column 4, another group, F-S-S-A-N-U-I-R, an anagram of Francis. Francis spelt with a U. That spelling of the name often occurs in contemporary documents. Between these 2 columns he found a symmetrical group which spells A-U-T-H-O-R-S, authors. So far that gave him Francis, Bacon, authors. An inverted arrow shape spells manuscripts. In full, Francis Bacon, authors, manuscripts. These anagrams can be examined more closely on another occasion. But then Thomas Bokenham examined the text on the monument to William Shakespeare at Holy Trinity Church, Stratford-on-Avon. First of all, the inscription reads, "Stay, passenger, why goest thou by so fast? Read if thou canst, whom envious death hath placed within this monument. Shakespeare, with whom quit nature died, whose name doth deck ye tomb far more than cost, sith all he hath writ leaves living art but page to serve his wit." Thomas Bokenham laid this inscription out on a grid of 14 letters, the same number as in Francis Bacon's method in Cryptomenitices et Cryptographiae. The cipher reveals in the top shape F-A-I-N-S-C-R, an anagram of Francis in a perfectly symmetrical shape. Below that occurred a crucifix, from top to bottom N, O, B, C and A, a symmetrical anagram of Bacon. And on the penultimate line, with a V for a U, A-T-O-R-H, in total, author. Francis Bacon, author. The phrase in the inscription, "whose name doth deck tomb," convinced Thomas Bokenham. The cruciform anagram, Bacon, surrounds the word tomb, or bedecks it. Whose name doth deck his tomb. Bacon is the name. Finally, a cipher found in this text, the dedication to the first folio of 1626, which Alan Stripp also examined at my request. It turned out to have a possible relevance to Poets' Corner. Thomas Bokenham claims very strong indications of cipher at Westminster, on a par with the inscription at Holy Trinity, Stratford upon Avon, but we will not consider those in this communication. The final part of the first folio dedication includes these words, "And the most, though the meanest of things, are made more precious when they are dedicated to temples. In that name, therefore, we most humbly consecrate to your honourables the remains of your servant Shakespeare." Ewan Macduff, a Shakespearean actor and an associate of Thomas Bokenham, laid out the dedication in full, each line of text given a line to itself. In a column above the name Shakespeare rises B-N-O-A-C, obviously an anagram of Bacon, capped by the U shape of another anagram, E-M-E-S-P-L-T, which retranslates as temples. On the scroll on the monument to Shakespeare, erected in 1741, millions of visitors must wonder exactly what it is the bard points at so insistently. The word temples. This frontispiece is from an emblem book by Henry Peacham, in which one page, dedicated to Sir Francis Bacon, Knight, shows the arm of a concealed poet with the inscription, "By the mind I shall be seen." On the title page of New Atlantis by Francis Bacon, published in 1627, a maiden is helped from a cave by the familiar figure with a scythe. The inscription, "Time brings forth the hidden truth."
Okay, so why is that video important? Why is it important that Francis Bacon basically is responsible for Shakespeare? Why is it important that he hit all these codes? Well, what people don't know is, first of all, Francis Bacon was of the Rosicrucian Order. So was King James. Now, the Rosicrucian Order was founded by a man named Christian Rosicrucian. And it's basically, it uses symbols and codes and mathematics to hide the true nature of the universe, to hide the truth. They hide the truth about God. They hide the truth about everything. It's a secret society. Now, something you got to ask yourself is, if these people wanted to tell us about religion, why give us the Bible and not give us the truth and the secrets that they have in this Rosicrucian order or in these other secret societies? Why are they hiding the truth from us? What is it about the truth that they feel like they need to hide from us? Think about that. The simple fact that they are in a secret society tells you that they can't be telling us the truth because they're hiding secrets. So what we have and we think is true religion obviously cannot be. Obviously. Because they have a secret and they're not telling you, but they gave you something which is obviously not the secret. Because they would just say, hey, join the society. Then you'll know everything. But they didn't do that. They gave us a book. And we're not even supposed to know that the society exists, the secret societies. Now, another thing that people don't know. Francis Bacon helped revise the King James Bible.
His script dealt with the burial of kings and queens, particularly Dean Stanley's researches in the last century. James I would have known about Bacon's Tudor blood, and though he knighted him and made him his Lord Chancellor in his time, he might have cut off his head if he had ever represented a threat to his throne.
He called on Francis Bacon. He actually gave him the manuscripts that was used to create the King James Bible, and Francis Bacon had them for over a year before he came back with his revised version of the King James Bible. A man who was a part of an order that when you study the order, you find Satanism. Coupled with a man who wrote a book called Demonology, gave you your King James Bible. But that's not all. First, take a look at this.
The Shakespeare controversy was illustrated quite clearly by Masonic author Manly P. Hall in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, where he reveals the veiled purpose behind the writing of the plays. He says, Sir Francis Bacon, the Rosicrucian initiate, wrote into the Shakespearean plays the secret teachings of the fraternity of the Rose and Cross and the true rituals of the Masonic order. The Bacon-Shakespeare controversy involves the most profound aspects of science, religion, and ethics. He who solves its mystery may yet find therein the key to the supposedly lost wisdom of antiquity. Never before seen.
Bacon was talking about this new nation, talking about submarines, talking about unimaginable weapons of war, talking about flying machines and tall buildings. How did he come into possession of this knowledge?
Did Francis Bacon outline the course of the new world before its time? And if so, by what power was he inspired to do so? While there are no states or cities that bear his name, his mysterious influence has compelled some to call him the real and true founder of America.
His founding of America was really through other people who were following his work, following the program he'd laid out.
Bacon was the head of Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism.
He had a huge influence through being the chief of the Rosicrucian fraternity at the time. He had a huge influence on the birth of modern Freemasonry. And many of those Rosicrucians actually went into Freemasonry at that time to lift it up to its new level. And Freemasonry has a major influence on the founding of America.
The Rosicrucian Order, with its modern headquarters in San Jose, California, has for centuries been linked to Freemasonry.
Well, you have to understand that Freemasonry is simply the modern-day manifestation of the ancient mystery religions. The ideas of Masonry have been around literally for thousands of years. And of course, Rosicrucianism was simply a forerunner of modern-day Masonry.
The order takes its name from its primary symbol, the rose and cross. Like Masonry, the Rosicrucians trace their religion to the mysteries of ancient Egypt.
Now, see, I like to give you proof when I say things. Sometimes I like to show you that other people came to these same conclusions, but that's not the deepest part of it all. Now, Benjamin Franklin, one of the forefathers of America, guess what?
Yet there is no debate about the Masonic membership of Benjamin Franklin, who is deeply involved not only with Masonry, but a whole variety of secret societies in America, in England, and in France. Societies that had everything to do with his success during the American Revolutionary War.
Benjamin Franklin is a very paradoxical, complex fellow, as might be expected for someone who was such a great genius. But at times he seems like he's a Christian. At times he seems like he's a scoundrel. At times it seems like he's a Luciferian, and at times it seems like he's a Rosicrucian.
He was a strange character, Benjamin Franklin, a sort of a shuttle diplomat between Philadelphia and Paris and London, England.
He was, of course, an ambassador in Europe, and when he was over in Europe, he became a member of a group called the Hellfire Club.
In his book, The Secret Destiny of America, Hall writes of Franklin's involvement with the plan of Francis Bacon. In Chapter 13, titled Bacon's Secret Society Set Up in America, Hall features an illustration showing the eastern seaboard with Benjamin Franklin overseeing it, while beside him is the shadow of Bacon. Hall claims that Franklin spoke for the secret societies and that most of the men who worked with him in the early days of the American Revolution were also members. He says, quote, "The plan was working out. The new Atlantis was coming into being in accordance with the program laid down by Francis Bacon."
Yeah, he was of the Rosicrucian Order as well. Benjamin Franklin, a founding father of America. So this takes us all the way back to the beginning of the video when I was telling you that this was a setup from the jump, and America was being put together as the Freemasons taking power.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
The very first that we know of occult beachhead in America was Rosicrucian. I was out on a speaking tour recently, and I had the opportunity to visit the Ephrata Cloister, it's called, in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. And it's where the original Rosicrucian community built its headquarters, right on the east coast of the United States. And that was in the 1600s. And right about the same time that Christianity was establishing its beachhead in America, so was the Rosicrucian Order.
And Benjamin Franklin was an insider the whole time, helping to set this whole thing up. Because you got to remember, and he wrote about it in his own memoirs, in his own autobiography, it was Ben Franklin who went back to Britain. He went back to England. And he was the one who told the king, King George III, that, hey, we're using colonial script. We're not using that bull crap that y'all using as money. We're using colonial script. And guess what? This colonial script is completely fiat. It is not backed by gold. It's a fiat currency that we created, that we're using, and it's not backed by any gold. And that's what sparked King George III to say, hey, we don't want no colonial script. We want gold and silver. And as he wrote in his autobiography, because of the taxes that was instilled upon them, because they couldn't really afford the gold and silver, it was the prime reason why the Revolutionary War started. And guess what? He was an insider, and he instigated the whole thing because it was the setup. And the proof is here. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with 2015, 2016? Now you remember I was showing you before how you can find Shakespeare in the Bible. Psalms 46, 46 words down, you get shake, 46 words up, you get spear. It just so happens that in 2011, Barack Obama actually read Psalms 46 at the 9/11 memorial. Now, as I said, they use symbolism in everything because 2011 is not 11. You got 11, and you got 11 minus 2 gives you 9. They use They may not be nothing to you. It may be like, okay, coincidence, but it's not a coincidence. They use numerology in everything. But I want you to take a look and listen to what Psalms 46 is about, and you tell me if it's appropriate or not for this event.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling, there is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot in fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
Shakespeare, it's a synonym for Apollo and Pallas Athena. They're both known as shakers of the spear in classical tradition, and the spear represents a ray of light, a ray of wisdom, and they shake that spear at the dragon of ignorance. Exactly what Ben Jonson says in his preface to the Shakespeare Folio, to shake a lance at the dragon of ignorance. And this is the role of an Apollo or Pallas Athena. And they have always been the muses of the other 9 muses, who themselves are the muses of all the writers, poets, artists, and so on in history. So Apollo and Athena are the great inspirers. They're the great Shakespeares.
Bacon incorporated these Greek gods within a key symbol, the AA headpiece representing Apollo and Athena. Usually one of the A's is shaded, denoting a light and dark side. This symbol is found printed at the head of certain pages within the Shakespeare Folio and among the acknowledged works of Francis Bacon. Of the two polarities, Apollo and Athena, it was Athena that seemed to dominate Bacon's imagination.
Pallas Athena was, she shook her spear at the eyes of ignorance. So she was the spear shaker. Now, she's always been known as the spear shaker. That was long before the time of Bacon. Back to the Greeks, the spear shaker. So he took that name, spear shaker, and just turned it around to make it Shakespeare. And it used to be written with a hyphen, and then it became one word, Shakespeare, as the name of the playwright for those Shakespearean plays.
So what does this have to do with anything? And I know it's common sense for other people's, and to some people it's not. But Psalms 46, Shakespeare, Francis Bacon put that in there to reveal himself as the writer of the Bible, as the person who coded it. And Obama was reading that verse to reveal himself as the Antichrist, because the Bible says the Antichrist will reveal himself. Now, it's so many different Masonic things I can go into just by Psalms 46 and the reading of that verse that would just totally convince you. I'm not going to go into all that. You should be convinced enough. Now, when I say Antichrist, I'm not talking about some boogeyman demon thing that you heard about in the Bible. I'm talking about as the figure, the representative of what the Antichrist is going to bring. Because everything that the devil does in the Bible, man does. It's just that simple. All of the destruction and all of the stuff that's going on, man does it. Men do these things. You don't need to go to hell to experience the torture that the devil's talking about, because you can experience that here on earth. It's bullshit. Don't get caught up in it. So, you remember, Francis Bacon was a master at codes. He showed you the different ciphers that he used to code things. He was a genius at it. And I asked you before, I posed the question, how do you speak to each other in a world of secrecy when nobody else can know? You use the Bible. And that's how they have done it. They've used the Bible, they've used the Torah, and they've used the Quran to speak to each other in secret societies using codes that Francis Bacon first started. All they did was evolve the code. So when you had these revisions of the Bible since 1611, it was the codes changing. And I believe since 1650 was the last time they admit they revised the Bible, I believe it has kept going. But now I believe they're done and they have a new way, because the codes say something different. And you can go on the internet and find this code stuff, but it's so many different things. But all you really need to do is take the Bible, take the words. The problem is you don't know which book, chapter, and verse to use, but take certain books and chapters and take it back to its original Hebrew language, or its original Greek or Syriac language, and you can decipher it that way. Now, I did a short video, I did a long video actually, but I took time out to show you that point and to prove to you that when you take these words back to its original language, the stories change. Now, I'm going to show you that clip from an older video where I prove this point and reveal to you what the Bible really is saying. Take a look. Now, this process is called etymology. Now, when we start taking these words back to its original Hebrew language, you'll see that they have different meanings. And I'm going to be showing you proof that these words say this, because I don't want people to think I'm just making this stuff up. Now, I won't be doing all the words because some of the words mean exactly the same in Hebrew, and it's too many words to do. It would take too long for me to do every word and to show proof of every word. And I'm actually going to be doing Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Now, I'm going to be reading from a King James version of the Bible. Genesis chapter 11 verses 1 through 9. And you can go ahead and get your own Bible and read it for yourself if you want. Just pause the video, or you can just follow along with me. Now, I'm going to read from 1 through 9 first. Then we're going to go through each verse, and we're going to go through and take some of the words and translate them back to its original Hebrew language and see what the real meaning is, and then see how the story changed. So let's get into it. Okay, Genesis chapter 11 verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto the heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men have builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them that they have imagined to do. Verse 7, Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now, the first thing, and this is what I mean when I say people lose all common sense when they start reading the Bible. Now, the story is about a people, a smart people. The Bible says that nothing will be restrained from them from which they have imagined to do. So these people were apparently smart. Were they bad? Were they evil? Were they more powerful than God? No. Does the story say anything about these people doing anything wrong? No. So why did God go down there and scatter them abroad and change their language so they couldn't understand each other? Now, here's the part a lot of people miss. Now, if God went down there and scattered them and confounded their language so they couldn't understand each other, how did the Tower of Babel get built? Now, Babel means a confused noise made by a number of voices or a confusing situation. Now, if these people were scattered and they was confused to the point where they couldn't understand each other, how did they manage to build the complicated Tower of Babel? Now, let's see what the story really says. And the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, so we're going to be dealing with the language of Hebrew. Let's dig into it, starting with verse 1. Okay, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Now, the first words we want to look at is whole earth, which in Hebrew is ha'aretz, which means the people of the land, not of the whole earth, but of a particular land. As a matter of fact, in Israel, the oldest daily newspaper is called the ha'aretz, which means the people of the land. Okay, the next word we want to look at is one, which in Hebrew is akkad, which means unity, united. The next word is language, which in Hebrew is safa, which means as a body part or binding. And the last word we want to look at is speech, which in Hebrew is dabar, which means business or acts or by extension. Now let's look at verse 1 again. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Now let's look at it in Hebrew, what it really says. And the people of the land was united as body parts, binding, and of one business, one act, and by one extension. Now let's get into verse 2. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Okay, the first words is came to pass, which in Hebrew is hayah, which means something happened, or fallout, or something occurred. The next word is journeyed, and some of y'all may know this already. It's nasa, but it means in Hebrew made, or to be pulled out. Now the next word is east, which is kadem in Hebrew, which means old, ancient, before, or aforetime. Now you start to understand what I mean. Now in the Hebrew manuscripts, the ones that they use to create the Bible, the word is kadem, which doesn't mean east, it means aforetime. So why did they put east in the Bible? Now the next word is land, which in Hebrew is eretz, which comes from Sheol. And Sheol in Hebrew means hell or underworld or place of no return. And the last word in the verse is dwelt. In Hebrew is yashab, which means to sit or inhabitants. Okay, so verse 2 says, and it came to pass that they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and dwelt there. But what it says in the Hebrew manuscript, and something happened. They was made to pull out from where they was before, and go to a plain, which plain actually is Bakwa in Hebrew, which means valley, in hell or underworld, a place of no return. So we have so far a people from a land who was united, who did their business as one, by one extension, who was made to leave the land that they was in before to go to a place that was like hell. Now let's get into verse 3. Okay, verse 3. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. Now this is where it started to get kind of loopy. Now right off the bat, we got the first words, they said. Now they said in Hebrew is amar, which means to say in your heart, which is where we get amor or amore, which means love or a feeling of great affection. Now the next word is one, and as I said before, one is akkad, which means unity. But now I have to explain this because one here is something different. And I know these words have a lot of different meanings to it, a lot of different definitions, and I don't want you to think I'm picking and choosing which words to use. What you have to do is get a Bible in its original Hebrew and Greek language, and then get a Bible you have now, and then match the words up, and then look at the difference between the words in Hebrew and the words in English. Now, in the Hebrew manuscript, the word is one is ish. So where they put one at in your Bible, they put ish in that place in the Hebrew manuscript. And ish means man or husband. Now the next word is another, which in Hebrew is ria, which means companion. And the next words are go to, which is yahad, which in Hebrew means to ascribe, or because something happened, you did this. Now, the next words is make brick. Now, this one is kind of crazy because make brick. Brick is laban, and laban in Hebrew means be white. Now, why would they put brick there if in the ancient manuscripts it says laban, which means be white? The next words is burn them thoroughly, which is aspranal in Hebrew, which means with all effort, diligence, careful and persistent work or effort. And the last word is slime, which in Hebrew is chamar, which means pitch, like pitch black. Now let's look at what we get so far. And it reads, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime had they for mortar. Now in the Hebrew it's saying, because this happened to us, let us be white with persistent work and effort. And as they was white and plummeted, and the word there is stone, but in Hebrew is eben, which means to plummet. And their pitch or color had they for mortar, and mortar is metokah, which means to stay. So which their color had them to stay. They stayed with that color. Now the story so far is you had these people who was united and worked as one. And it was forced from their land into a place that was like hell. Now the man said to the woman, to the companion, that since this happened to us, let us be white, or let us make brick. Let us be like the people who did this to us. Now you have to understand that this is a metaphorical story. It's all paraphrase. You have to decode the code. Now in case you ain't figure it out, the people that it's talking about are black people, Africans. And the land that was like hell is the desert, or Egypt. Now let's keep going and see how this turned out. Okay, verse 4 says, and they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, let's look at what this really says in Hebrew. Okay, so the first word is build, which is bana, which means reestablish or rebuild. The next word is city, which is ire, which means a place well guarded. The next word is tower, which means migdal, meaning a podium or a platform. The next word is ta. In Hebrew, it's rosh. Now, rosh meaning a chief or a head chief or leader. Now heaven in Hebrew means shamayim, meaning abode of God or the divine ones. Now make is asa, which means to put in order or to attend to. And the last word for the verse is name, which is shem, which means your reputation or glory designated by God, a memorial or monument. Now, verse 4 reads, and they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now understand that the people that it's talking about in verse 4 is not the same people as before. They are descendants of those people. And we're going to find out how we know that in a second. Now it reads, and they said, let us go rebuild or reestablish a well-guarded place and a podium or platform where our chief or person in charge may reach the abode of God and the divine ones. Let us put in order or attend to our reputation as glory designated by God before we get scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, let's go into 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. Now, the first word is Lord. Now, in Hebrew, it's 4 letters, Y-H-U-H. Then that was changed to Jehovah, then to Yahweh. Now, we've been taught that Lord in this verse means God. God came down. But Lord in Hebrew simply means the person who is in charge, or a person who has authority over others. Now, think about when you see those old English movies, and the Baron or the Count in those movies, the people refer to him as Lord. They say, yes, my Lord. But really, Lord just means the person who is in charge. Now, the next word we have is see, which is ra'ah in Hebrew, which means to access or become aware of, or to make an inspection. The next word is children, which is ben, B-E-N, which is descendants or son of, like Judah ben-Hur or Ben-Hur. Now, Ben-Hur means son of Hur, and Hur was a companion of Moses and Aaron in the Hebrew Bible, and he was from the tribe of Judah. Now, so far we got the people were trying to make a comeback, these descendants of the people who said, let us be white. They was trying to make a comeback, and what we got is the people who are in charge going down to see what's going on. So let's go to verse 6. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Now, the first word is this, which is ze in Hebrew, which means eclectically, which means selecting or employing individual elements from a variety of sources. The next word is begin, which is chalal, which means to pollute or to violate what has been set in place. The last word is restrain, which is gora, which is to hinder or take away or diminished. Now let's go on to 7. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. The first word is confound, which means bala in Hebrew, which the definition is to mix or mingle or to infiltrate and render powerless. The next word is understand, which is shama, which means to hear intelligently, to comprehend. Now that's the end of 7. This is 8. This is the last verse we got to translate because we don't need to do 9. So let's look at 8, and it says, so the Lord scattered them abroad from hence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Now the first word is scatter, which is zara, which means to winnow, and winnow means to remove people or things from a group until only the best ones are left. And the last word we find through this thing is left off, which is kadal in Hebrew, which means to cease or fail or deserted. Now let's look at verses 6 through 9 and see what the Hebrew manuscript is saying in Hebrew. Now it's saying that the people in power said they are united, they are one. They are using elements from a variety of sources to violate what we have set in place. Now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Because they did this, let us go infiltrate them and render them powerless, so that they won't be able to understand or comprehend intelligently. So the people in power removed the ones they couldn't control until the best ones was left. And they ceased or deserted or fell at building their platform, their name, and place among the divine ones. Okay, so I just read to you from the Bible a story that has a coded story within the story when you take the words back to its original Hebrew language. Now this story basically is saying that there was a people who was united, who worked as one, who was taken away from their land and sent to a place that was like hell. And instead of fighting back, these people said, we can't beat them, let's join them, and decided to be like the people who did this to them. Now later the ancestors basically said, hey, let's reclaim what we were and rebuild our place that we came from, and let us build us a platform or a podium where our chief or head person can reach the divine ones or God. Now the people in power saw what they was doing and said, hey, didn't we just stop them from doing this the first time, or didn't we stop them from becoming something better the first time? and let's go down and confound their speech, or let's go down and infiltrate them and render them powerless so they can't do this. And they went down there and did just that. They took out the people who they couldn't control and left the people who they could control, or the good ones. And because they did that, the people fell at reaching their task, or building a tower, or rebuilding their city. Now, this story doesn't make any sense when you read it in the Bible as is, because it don't make sense when it says that the Lord, or we supposed to believe that's God, scattered them and confounded their speech, which means to confuse them. It means babble. I mean, if you can't talk and communicate, how can you do something as complicated as build a tower, especially the way they describe the Tower of Babel? So how did the tower get built if God came down and confounded their speech? See, the story only makes sense when you transfer the words back to its original Hebrew language. When you do that, you can see a whole different story, and the story starts to make sense. Now, it's important for me to say that this is a metaphorical story, meaning you have to decode this story as well. Now, what the Bible is, as I will show you in the second video, this is kind of sort of like a code book. And it's really made for people that's in secret societies. It's not really made for the regular person. We are meant to learn the Bible as is. You're not supposed to be digging into this stuff, what I'm showing you now. You're not supposed to even know it. So as you can see, when you start taking these words back to its original language, things change. Meanings change. And that's what has taken place. Now, you got a lot of people coming out saying Bible prophecy is being fulfilled and this and that. What you have is the codes. You have the people who are bringing about this change, bringing about Bible prophecy. So in other words, the people who told you this stuff was going to happen in the Bible are the people who is making it happen. Any type of celestial event, any type of red moon or blood moon, this stuff has happened already, and it has been cataloged. Ancient races have cataloged blood moons. They've cataloged full moons. That's how we know about them. So before the Bible was ever even written, we already knew about these things. So all they did was put it into the Bible so you can think later on it's something prophetic. It's not something that is prophecy. It's something that has happened already, and that they knew was happening and knew will only happen in this generation or that generation. So when they put it in the Bible, they can make it look like they had some kind of prophecy. It'll keep you a believer. That's what it's doing. But it's not nothing new. Everything that you've seen in this time that's coming up, it's just they used it and they put it in there because that's the time frame where they are going to be completing their plan. So what they're basically, these people are unbelievably organized. They have stuck to their plan. They have seriously stuck to their plan for centuries. So while you can't fathom spending your whole life to make an agenda come true that you'll never see come true, this is exactly what these secret societies do. So while you think that the people who started this stuff hundreds of years ago, who would never see it come into fruition, would dedicate their lives to such a thing, this is what they have done. And they have all lived rich, wonderful, fulfilling lives, making this plan come into place. And in 2015, 2016, we are going to see the climax of that plan come into place. And Barack Obama is going to be the one who ushers it in by starting a war. World War III, if it comes to be. See, one of the things I want you to take from this is you need to understand it's up to the people. You can change everything. See, they want you to believe in this religion and believe that everything is set. Everything is written. Nothing we can do about it. You just got to sit back and let the Lord handle it. This is what they want you to believe. You have seen this stuff everywhere. You have seen that the Twin Towers was an inside job. People do nothing. You have seen all the brutality by police. People do nothing. You are marching and begging the very people who are responsible for all of the heinous things that's going on. Then you turn around and march and ask them to change it when they are the same people who are the cause of it. They're not going to change anything. Anything that the news tells you is what they want you to know. What's about to occur, what's about to happen, has been planned out for hundreds of years. And unless America wakes up, it's going to be chaos the next 2 years. They want nothing short of total destruction of America. Look at what we have seen. They've given you signs. You remember from the tennis match with Serena Williams, the flag falling. The flag fell on the part that said, and our flag was still there, then the flag falls. Remember the flag split in the World Series. Remember Miss America, she fell. I mean, they're just trying to give you hints that America is going to fall. It has to fall. Now, on top of that, you have China. You have China making a replica of Manhattan. China building these massive cities in China. They built a replica of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. They're building these massive cities that keep going up, and everybody's looking at them like they're crazy. They're not crazy, they just know what's about to happen in America. While you say
This is Ujiapu. It is China's take on Manhattan. In 2008, an ancient fishing village on an inconspicuous bend of the High River was cleared away, and this forest of skyscrapers were planted in its place. Set for completion in 2019, Ujiapu will be the polar opposite of what was here before. With a replica going up of the Rockefeller Center and a set of towers that look very much like the original World Trade Center, it's not too far-fetched to call this place a knockoff. But it is a knockoff like the world has never seen before. When completed, Ujiapu will cover nearly 4 square kilometers in area, making it the largest financial district in the world. The Ujiapu development is in Tianjin, which is one of the largest and most important metropolises in China. Sitting around 100 miles from Beijing, it aims to be northern China's next financial hub. Though Ujiapu will resemble Manhattan's financial district, its design was not half-baked in some shady corner of a half-rate architectural swash-up. No, China called in the big guns for this project. The replica of the Rockefeller Center and the Ujiapu Twin Towers are being handled by the China arm of Tishman Speyer, the same architectural firm that built the original World Trade Center, and are currently in the process of completing one WTC.
While you sitting up there dick-eating these celebrities and praising these celebrities, they are buying property in Europe. Because you have to realize that this prophecy, why is this prophecy only affecting America? Think about it. All of the death and destruction that's supposed to take place is supposed to go down in America. America's supposed to be Babylon. New York's supposed to be Babylon. You actually have a Babylon in New York, by the way. But the Bible says, come out of her. It's trying to tell you something. It's America. Now, I have another reason why I believe America, something that's going to happen in America, but I don't have enough research to get into that yet. But I'm doing the research now, and if I find anything more concrete, and I'll do a video on it. But you people is just so blind to the facts, and so many people is putting their faith in this religion, and I feel bad for the people like me and people that's stuck in America that don't have the means and the ways to get out of there, that's begging these people to just wake up and do something. And these people who are not doing anything, these religious people who are just sitting back and waiting for Jesus to come, are going to be the downfall of some very good people, because they're going to refuse to help. So the Bible speaks about the wars and everything that the Antichrist is going to bring. And that's exactly what Obama was telling you. He was saying that he's getting ready to bring about the destruction of America through war. You know, through so much pain and suffering, and you black people look up to him, because they're not going to have a white man be the face of so much death and destruction that's about to happen in America over the next 2 years. A white man is not going to take credit for that. That's why they put a black man in the White House. How do you get a black president and so much crime and violence going on against black people? That should tell you something right there. They don't want the people to unite. It's just not a black-white thing. Why do you got black people looking at white people funny? White people looking at black people funny? They are so close to completing their agenda. So close. And the only thing that's stopping them is the people. We can stop everything. The people can shut it all down. Now, you got to realize, as I said earlier, these people are in every single facet of America, of your science, your technology, your school, everything. First of all, there's no beating them on the battlefield. You can forget about that. So if you're thinking that, okay, well, we just gonna all get together and we all gonna get our guns and they ain't gonna be able to stand a chance against us. Nah, the time for that's past. The weapons they got now, they can wipe out whole states, whole cities. But just, you've seen the bombs they got. You've seen what happened in Syria when they dropped those chemical weapons and everybody just went to sleep. That was it. They're gone. There's no beating them on the battlefield. This is the only shot y'all got. And I don't want to be the one that said, I told you so. Because the rest of the world is going to go on. America's going to be what it becomes. The rest of the world is going to go on. They talk about that 7 years of tribulation. Whoever's stuck in America during that time, they're going to go through some hell until America gets fixed. But the rest of the world is going to go on. The rest of the world will be fine. Trust me. And they are already preparing for it. China's been preparing for it. But it's America is where everything is going to go wrong. America. It tells you. Daniel was talking about Russia attacking America with air power. I don't want to go into all that Bible stuff because that's all bullshit. But it's a setup. But what you need to do, and I'm not trying to scare nobody, I just want you to really wake up and wake other people up and get them to realize that you have crazy, sick motherfucking people who are trying to bring an agenda about, who are the reason that Bible prophecy is coming true. Now, I wish I had more time to make this video longer because there's so much that I'm leaving out. There's so much more to the story, but I realize when I make these videos long, people don't want to watch them. So I try to keep them short, keep them under an hour and a half at least. You know, when there's a lot of information I got to get in there. But it's a lot more to this. And for people who are knowledgeable, the ones who have been watching my videos, I mean, you can kind of take what I'm saying and put it in the context and it'll make sense to you. To some other people, you're probably like, it's some more bullshit. I don't believe this stuff. And that's exactly what they want you to do. You know, when this stuff go down, y'all gonna sit back and think some Jesus coming on a white horse and all that, and this shit ain't gonna happen. You gotta remember, Jesus coming back means their plan is done. So that means they're finished. Their plan is done. They've won. And you supposed to chill for 7 years waiting for Jesus. Like, Jesus gonna come, but think about that, the thinking in that. I mean, what God will let you suffer for 7 years? Well, what God will let you suffer this long? So, I wanted to do this video, and like I said, it's a lot more I wish I could add to it, but I don't want to make it too long. It's already too long as it is. But I just want to say to the people who follow what I follow, and you know, who's been listening to my videos and watching them and paying attention, to just get your money together, seriously. Get your passport together, and be ready to get the hell out of America when it's time. I'm serious, because if people are not going to wake up, you ain't got to die there. Get the hell out of there, and you know, go somewhere. Get the hell out of the country, stack some money, and get the fuck out of America, because it's going to be crazy there, and everything that I'm seeing. I mean, I know. Other people know. And the economy is going down. The dollar's going to crash. It's going to be chaos there. There's no stopping it. But the crazy thing is, you can stop it. The people can just go and shut it down. You have to realize they are in every facet of American society. So we're not talking about just getting rid of the senators and president and all that. We're talking about America needs a complete overhaul. I mean, you got to get rid of the Congress, the senators. You got to really start looking at professors and doctors and lawyers and the whole judicial system. All that shit is corrupt. It's all part of the same beast. And all that shit is set up against the American people. It's all one big fuck. And as soon as people realize that, because they got y'all hooked on patriotism that they created America. They made you patriots so you would die for their agenda. They got you hooked on that when it's all bullshit, and now they're about to bring their plan together. And it's a shame, because America was a setup from the rip, and it's sad to say that, but it is what it is. The people can change it to what it was supposed to be. The people can make it what it should be. But the people need to wake up and stop looking at black and white, stop fighting, because it's almost too late. And they are about to win. They're about to drop that hammer. Curtain about to close. Seriously. So, to those people, man, I feel bad. I got a lot of family still in America. I'm trying to wake people up, and hopefully everybody wake up and make a change. You need to go and just really get rid of Congress, get rid of the president, do something. Like, I don't know. But if it's looking like it's not going to happen, when you start seeing that change, I'm going to give you a word of advice. I'm going to give you the warning signs. First of all, when you see the EBT, food stamp cards start to have problems, that's a sign. When you see credit cards start to have a problem, that's a sign. When they start talking about viruses, like somebody trying to use a computer virus to shut down the banks, that's a sign. And when they come on the news and say that the banks are closed, if that happens, the banks are closed and nobody can go to the banks because of some kind of computer virus or whatever excuse they use, you probably got 72 hours to get the fuck out of America then, before they declare martial law. Trust me, because that means the dollar just crashed. Pay attention to China, watch C-SPAN, find out what's going on. I'm telling you, the next 2 years, you're going to see things in America that is unheard of, that is going to blow your mind. This shit is all a distraction. America is going to go two ways. Either the people are going to fix it or they're going to take over. It's up to y'all. And again, thanks for watching, and like, comment, share, and please, if I do make another video, that's going to be like a big warning as far as like what's about to happen. So look out for that video, and hopefully things get better there. Hopefully people wake up, and if not, it's going to be crazy. But thanks for watching.